What are the top 5 jets with no guns that actually should be added to the game? Hello guys, once again it's Matt. Thank you all the members and patrons. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into it. Today kind of a late video. Was actually watching the 6 hours of Spa. So yeah. But anyway, let's get going guys. I actually wanted to do a top 5 list of aircraft that I normally don't use cannons. Even some of them could actually even carry cannons, but in a general sense they wouldn't use a cannon, and that they should be added. So in the 5th position we have the F101 Voodoo. It has kind of a weird development, progress, and etc. This aircraft was actually at a certain point kind of meant to be used as other things, but at the end of the day there was variants to be used as interceptors, and they basically removed the cannons that they were planning to add in service for them, for just to use just missiles, right? The missile was the AIM-4 Falcon, still a missile that was never added to the game, for now. There aren't that many aircraft that actually could carry that missile, but still, it should be added, and some pilots even claim that this missile is better than the AIM-9B, right? So it should be a missile that is added no matter what, right? And with the Voodoo, maybe we have an event vehicle. By the way, all of these might be just better to have as event vehicles, because they would be kind of hard to use as normal vehicles, as you know from like a Sea Vixen, for example. But yeah, they can be added as a tech tree vehicle, but maybe not without the gun, the ones that can actually carry a gun. For the 4th position we have the Su-15, a Soviet interceptor from the 60s, basically the evolution of the Soviet interceptors from the late 50s. And yeah, it has an amazing performance. It was basically very similar to the J8 that we have in the game, and yeah, it's an aircraft that, if added with the more modern versions, it can actually carry R-60Ms and the R-98, which are pretty alright missiles. They're not the greatest thing ever. It would be like an AIM-7D of maneuverability, or R-23 or something like that. So not the greatest thing ever, but it should be alright. But the R-60M should be plenty to deal with any target. You wouldn't have any flares, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, if added in the TM version, later models, of course, it can actually carry gun pods, the Grisha 23, right? But normally, it didn't use any guns, right? So another one that could be an event vehicle or something, because it would suffer as a tech tree vehicle. People would have problems dealing with it. These aircraft, they are good enough that they are good for an event vehicle, or even maybe a premium, but not for the average player, right, in the tech tree. For 3rd place, we have the Deltas, the F102 and the F106. Although the 106 later in its life actually carried a gun, a Vulcan, the 102 never did that, if I'm not mistaken. But again, they use the same missiles as the Voodoo, the AIM-4, and it is a very early, for the time, it is a very advanced aircraft. The 102 was from like the mid to late 50s, right? So it's a very early aircraft. They are both supersonic, very fast, climb very well, have pretty good controllability, like flying abilities, And yeah, the only thing is that they would be similar to the Voodoo, an interceptor, and with the 106, I mean, you can carry a gun, but in general, it would only be AIM-4s, right? For the 2nd position, we have a Sabre that never came to the US in the game, a brother to the F-86K that we have in the game, which is the F-86D or the F-86L, which is an improved version of the D variant. These F-86s, they didn't have any guns. They are basically the same aircraft as the K, but without any guns. The same radar, same everything, if I'm not mistaken, but instead of having the guns, it has basically rockets under the aircraft, right? In theory only, I don't know if they actually use that. It can actually take, proxy fuse rockets, in theory at least. So I don't know, maybe Gaijin could add those, I don't know, or do more research than I can from outside sources, right? And of course, it can in theory as well use A9Bs, although I think the majority of the in-service loadouts were just the rockets. But still, if you can actually carry the A9s, it would be pretty cool. It would be a very cool, again, event vehicle or something like that. Very difficult to use, similar to something like the F89, right, with the rockets, right? So it would be cool, but problematic to be in the tech tree. And the first one, the aircraft that I think should have been added a long time ago, even if it's an event vehicle, the MiG-25. Of course, the MiG-25, the major interceptor, the best interceptor that the Soviets had in the 70s, and the main interceptor for them in the 70s, and the aircraft that made basically the F-15B so good, actually, because the MiG-25 was kind of scary, and the CIA kind of overestimated how scary that aircraft would be. But yeah, that made the F-15 possible. So it's too iconic to not exist, you know. It was the main interceptor for the Soviet force, you know. In its, you know, initial variant, the P variant would be kind of limited, only with the older R40s with not like between 20 to 30 kilometers max, and not a lot of turn capability, and with a radar that was kind of bad for the time for lower altitudes. But the PD, for example, could actually have a very similar technology from the MiG-23MLs, right, in the radar. And of course, with that, better radars as well, better missiles as well, like the R40RD, for example, and even R60Ms. The R40RDs can actually get to 60 kilometers of range and turn the same as an R24, so it's a very, very capable missile. So yeah, the only problem with this aircraft is that it doesn't have a gun, of course, and obviously it doesn't turn very well. Everything else, it is pretty amazing. You would need to actually use in the correct way, climbing and fast accelerating, and the BR of these need to be well thought about, because if it's too high, it will get slapped, and if it's too low, it will get, basically, you can just passively fly away from everybody if you don't want to get killed, right? So it's kind of an interesting aircraft. Again, I still believe that it's more likely that this thing would be added as an event vehicle, since it would be a difficult aircraft to fly. But still, I think maybe the PD or PDS, which is basically a P that was upgraded to PD standard, they can be added as, you know, a normal vehicle. It's just that it's, I mean, it needs to be the better versions to have a chance. That's the thing, because the way that the game works and everything like that isn't really fair for an aircraft like this, or to the aircraft against it, to be honest. But still, hopefully these 5 aircraft are added. I know the 101, you know, the 102s, they are a little bit problematic, but the other ones I think should be added, and it would be very cool to see it in the game. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe and leave it in the comments. What is your aircraft that is gunless that you think should be added to the game? I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe.